Welcome to the fourth in our series of workshops on developing the next generation of research leaders for sustainable development. WUN is offering the series in collaboration with UNESCO and with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. These workshops are intended to help enlarge the networking opportunities for researchers in the early stages of their careers. An important part of WUN's mission is to nurture research talent. And historically, we've done that through a mobility program aimed at early career researchers. That program, along with many of the other means by which researchers typically establish their collaborative networks, has been upended by COVID-19. This series of workshops is a response to that. They're intended to help researchers find peers and potential collaborators who've related interests. But we're not viewing the workshops as just a stopgap until life gets back to normal. If they're a success, we will have created a vehicle for enlarging opportunity generally, and especially for researchers whose freedom to collaborate internationally has in the past been limited by financial or other restrictions on travel. The emphasis on the SDGs, each workshop will explore one and the research challenges that attend it, stems from WUN's adoption of sustainable development as the principal research focus of its strategic plan. Later in this session, I'll say more about the particulars of our research agenda and the ways in which you can become involved in it. But first, we'll hear from four panelists. A keynote from our special guest, Madame Bineta Diop, Special Envoy of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission on Women, Peace and Security. And that will be followed by snapshots from three leading WUN researchers to characterize some of the rich research challenges and opportunities presented by Goal 5, gender equality. We hope there will be a little time for questions after the remarks from our speakers. If you'd like to ask a question, as Aoife said, please use the chat function on the right of your screen, and we'll take questions at the end if there's time. So I'd like now to introduce our first speaker, Madame Bineta Diop, who has been the Special Envoy of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission on Women, Peace and Security since 2014. She is the founder and chair of the board of Femmes Africa Solidarité, an international NGO created in 1996 that seeks to foster, strengthen and promote the leadership role of women in conflict prevention, management and resolution in Africa. Madame Diop has led numerous peace-building programs to enlarge women's participation in peace processes. She was instrumental in achieving gender parity within the African Union Commission, in the adoption of the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women in Africa, and in the Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa in 2004. She led the setting up of the Gender is My Agenda campaign network. Madame Diop has received numerous honors and awards, and in 2011 was declared one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. Madame Diop, please activate your camera and we'll start with your remarks.
Thank you so much, Peter, for this introduction. Let me start by expressing my gratitude to the Worldwide University Network and the Sustainable Development Network for inviting me to have this interaction with the next generation of research leaders focusing on Sustainable Development Goal 5. My intervention will look into 4 areas. Very brief, the value of multilateralism in addressing the SDG 5, but also the second will be the added value of researcher in this, and a few areas that need further research, and I will end with the call for action. So starting with the SDG, the ultimate aim of the Sustainable Development Goal, as you rightly said, or even at the United Nations, is leave no one behind. This overarching purpose underlines the need and the value of multilateral collaboration in addressing the SDG. With particular reference to SDG 5, And to put it in the current context, the eruption of COVID-19 pandemic that exacerbated violence against women and girls, reaching level of a worldwide shadow pandemic. Virtually no country was spared, demonstrating that what affects one affects all, and the responses cannot be done in silos. It requires a multifaceted approach and is our collective responsibility to respond to this scourge. The uniqueness of SDG 5 is that it is a cross-cutting and central part of achieving all the other SDGs. There cannot be any true, sustainable, and equitable development without the attainment of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, addressing their needs and aspirations and giving them power and voice across the entire spectrum of the SDG agenda. With the increased connectedness of people around the world, recentering multilateralism at the core provide a platform for continued engagement in a way that ensures that any country winning in gender equality progress means we all win. For this progress to happen, research must be put at the center of the delivery of SDG commitment. Three main reasons I will give. First, knowledge and research must constitute the backbone of policies and inform their implementation. Research should not age, and data must be reviewed and updated, or even discarded as new information is gleaned from careful and granular research. There is a need for a constant renewal of researchers, and I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate WUN and the SDSN on this endeavor to build the next generation of researchers on sustainable development. The speed and ease of communication afforded by technology and innovation should be leveraged to constitute a critical mass of young researchers in the various corners of the world, including my continent in Africa. So I strongly believe in working in synergy, and I would advocate for the creation of platforms that bring together the young researcher. There is the old saying, unity is strength, and I think it should apply now. WUN partnership with SDSN offered and UNESCO offers a unique opportunity to join forces in creating such space and pathway for young people to leapfrog actions in various sectors and domains. Secondly, it's critical to ensure that research improves and change practice. I believe that progress toward gender equality is the litmus test of a forward-moving society. Therefore, the true impact of research should be measured by how it benefits the lives of women and girls. It's important that new generations are provided with solid grasp of the realities, the barriers, and the possibility for change. Thirdly, young researchers should start within their own circle and ask questions on gender equality in the research and scientific world. Women researchers and scientists have long labored in invisibility, never getting credit. I'm happy to see many females in this platform today. So often, as we see, men use their key position to influence decision, evaluation, and development of scientific excellence. These barriers against women must be addressed. Let me now dwell on some areas that research on gender equality need to address. Gender equality is an accelerator for inclusive growth and also for improved livelihood for all. However, the domination of development and economic modeling around male-oriented paradigms hinders overall global achievability of the SDG. Let me give 3 examples that can substantiate this. First, the notion of trickle-down economics. The belief that as long as growth is promoted, it will eventually benefit all segments of population. This is far from the lived experience of many women across the world. The top-down approach stagnates the economic empowerment and financial inclusion of women. Second is the failure to pay attention to women within household. The consequences of this is that grassroots level policy are often designed without taking into account women, who are then further invisibilized. This is a driver of the persistent and increasing level of feminized poverty, denying women access to education, access to health care, access to decision making, a blatant violation of their human rights. Third, it is a failure to adequately, cost and recognize women's contribution. Women spend disproportionately more on unpaid care than men on account of gender social norm that view this as female prerogative. So the actual contribution of women in households and informal economy are not into the mainstream economic calculations. So changing this norm and influencing real people economics are areas that call for enhanced research. I wish to conclude my intervention with a call to action to the young researcher we are interacting with today. It's twofold. First, change starts with oneself. I urge all of us, all of the young researchers, to own fully the gender agenda and champion issues like gender and climate change, gender and governance, gender peace and security. I think gender must be lived by each one of us. It is not somebody else's business. Second, I will refer to the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report 2020, which benchmarked 153 countries on their progress toward gender equality and concluded that at the current pace, the world will take 99.5 years, almost a century, to achieve gender equality. This cannot be. It can happen much earlier with political will and collective action. So there is a matter of urgency. Use the power of your research to innovate, to scale up action, to build a better world where men and women are equal and enjoy the fruits of progress and inclusion. So finally, gender issues are a vital cross-section to all SDGs, and as it is critical that gendered perspectives are brought into the analysis of every one of the other 16 SDGs. In other words, gender equality is a sine qua non to achieve sustainable development. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Madame Diop, for these very illuminating and inspiring remarks. We're very glad also to have with us 3 other guests who are principal investigators on WUN research projects focusing on gender equality. We've asked each to provide a snapshot of their team's project. And after these snapshots, if we have time, we'll put your questions to our speakers. As a reminder, if you're going to have a question, please write it in the chat bar on the right side of your screen. Our first of the speakers with WUN projects is Dr. Rhonda Breitkreuz. She's a professor in the Department of Human Ecology at the University of Alberta, where she leads the Gender, Family and Policy Research Initiative. Her research focuses on the ways in which social policies affect well-being, social equality, and access to resources for individuals and families. She's the founder of the newly established Global Research Network on the Economic Empowerment of Women, which explores ways to improve women's social and economic well-being in a range of countries. She's the principal investigator on a WUN project on Global Research Network on the Economic Empowerment of Women. Dr. Breitkreuz, please activate your camera as you begin your remarks.
Thank you to the World University Network staff for inviting me here today on this distinguished panel. It's a great honor to have this opportunity, and I appreciate it. I've never done a presentation in 4 minutes before, so I'm going to use some slides to help guide me. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk a little bit about our network, the Global Research Network on the Economic Empowerment of Women, which we call RENEW for short. We wanted to start this network because across the globe, women's social, political, and economic position continues to lag. And in the last several years, there's been a substantial focus on women's economic empowerment in the international NGOs, the development organizations, and many governments in diverse regions across the globe. And in OECD countries, there's been a substantial focus on strategies to enhance gender equality. So within this context, we wanted to have a close look at women's economic empowerment, looking at its potential and possibly its risks for women if it's not looked at in a fulsome way. We have 12 investigators from 5 universities in 5 countries in 5 global regions on this project. And the aim of our project is to build a foundation for sustained and productive research partnerships across disciplines, universities, and countries. And notably, we have a broad range of disciplines: human ecology, business, sociology, medicine, nursing, social policy, and economics, because we think that women's economic empowerment requires an interdisciplinary focus. Next slide, please. So these are a few thematic areas that we are focused on, and although this list is not exhaustive, I just wanted to show some of the things that we're concerned with. And you can see that there's some crossover between these themes and some of our other speakers and some of the remarks that Madame Diop made today. I just wanted to highlight a couple, and that is access to decent work for women and the unpaid and informal care work. Women disproportionately have lower paid, lower quality jobs across most countries in the world. And so we think that access to decent work is something that needs to be looked at carefully. And importantly, we must look at this within the context of the unpaid and informal care and household work that women perform. Recognition that unpaid work needs to be, in the words of Diane Elson in the UK, recognized, reduced, and redistributed is an important focus of our network. Next slide, please. So we think that there are some key future, because we're still working this through, contributions of our network. First of all, we want to conduct our research in an interdisciplinary, ecological, contextual way. And we think that this is really important. When we're thinking about economic empowerment, we want to think about this from a social and a political and an economic context, and looking at women's lives in their complexity. We also want to include emerging and established economies within this network. We recognize that many issues that impact women transcend borders, and we want to highlight the commonalities of the issues within a range of developing, middle, and advanced economies. We think that this is really important, to look at these issues across different regions of the world in different economic contexts. And we also want to scrutinize the instrumental focus of economic empowerment for women. Although we recognize that economic empowerment of women is very good for the economy, for GDP, we also want to look at how it impacts women within their own lives as well. And to date, we've done a number of activities, which I can talk about later. I just wanted to highlight that we are working on a book proposal that we've submitted to a UK publisher that looks at economic empowerment from a contextual interdisciplinary lens that I highlighted. So I think my 4 minutes are up, and I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that very compelling account of your project. Our next speaker is Dr. Katie Kuschminder, who is an associate professor at the United Nations University Merit and at Maastricht University. Her research focuses on return and reintegration, irregular migrants' journeys, and migration governance. She has led migration projects for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, German Development Cooperation, among other agencies. In 2020, she was awarded an ERC starting grant on reintegration governance, and she is the principal investigator on a WUN research project on gendering migration, women and girls' experiences of gender-based discrimination, abuse, and violence across migratory stages. Dr. Kuschminder, please activate your camera as we start with your remarks.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much, WUN, for also having me here to speak today and to share about the project that we're doing with the World Universities Network. So this project is working with 8 different partners from the University of Bristol, Cape Town, myself from Maastricht, the University of Massachusetts Amherst, the National Cheng Kung University, the Vrije University Amsterdam, the African Migration Development Policy Center, and the University of Western Australia. And we are a really nice network in that it's very globalized. Through the World Universities Network, we're covering just about every region of the world. And through our project, we're also a very interdisciplinary group. We have people who work from anthropology, from social work, from development studies. So it's a very interdisciplinary team. The objective of this project is to look at women's experiences of international migration. Women account for slightly less than half of international migrants. However, they are disproportionately affected by gender-based discrimination, abuse, and violence, whilst being often invisible in these experiences. And women and girls' migration experiences impact their life course, their family and communities, and both their country of origin and their receiving society. In our project, we seek to highlight the different experiences that women face across these migration stages. And we look at very different types of migration, which is one of the facets that makes the project quite unique. So we include in our study internal migration movements in Kenya, rural to urban migration of girls in Ethiopia, women's experiences of crossing the Mediterranean from Libya to Italy, how women experience corruption within their migration journeys, women's asylum-seeking experiences in South Africa, the experiences of female marriage, of women going from marriage migration to Taiwan, and the experiences of refugee resettlement in both Australia and in the United States, and finally, women's experiences of returning to their country of origin after migration episodes. And throughout the study, what we really aim to do is to highlight both the challenges women experience, which often include kidnapping, extortion, gender-based violence, but also their strength and their resilience and their capabilities to contribute to their countries of destination within their migration trajectories. This case really brings forward the different types of female experiences in a very widely comparative context. And at the end of the project, we're aiming to come out now with a new website that will highlight these different experiences of female migrants. Due to the situation of COVID, we were not able to proceed with the project, of course, as planned. And what we've decided to do is to make a very nice website that will bring together the different case studies to highlight the different experiences. It will also aim to provide more information on the experiences of female migrants. There will be a quiz and there will be some other pieces of information that people can follow. And we'll be launching this website on the 25th of November, which is the International Day for the End of Violence Against Women. I'm sure that it will be also shown on the WUN website, so please do check back if you're interested in this topic and if you'd be interested to learn more about the work that we have conducted. So thanks very much for the opportunity to share with you the work that we are doing, and I will then turn it back over to Peter.
Thank you very much, Katie, for that very interesting and comprehensive summary of your project. Our final speaker this morning is Dr. Parveen Ali, who is a senior lecturer at the University of Sheffield. She's a registered nurse, a registered midwife in Pakistan, and a registered nurse teacher. Her research focuses on gender-based violence, domestic abuse, inequalities in health related to gender ethnicity. She is a recipient of several awards, including the Mary Seacole Leadership Award and Sigma's Emerging Nurse Researcher Award, also the Pakistani Diaspora Achievement Award. She is principal investigator on a WUN project on mental health impact and access to health and social care services for women victims of intimate partner violence. Dr. Ali, please activate your camera as you begin.
You're on mute, Parveen. You need to mute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for being here today. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a glimpse about my project, which is pretty much similar to what my previous colleague has talked about. I'm also interested in violence against women. Next slide, please. So the topic of my project, as suggested earlier, is about, we wanted to look at the mental health impacts and access to health and social care services for women victims of intimate partner violence. And the idea was to develop, can I have the next slide, please? So the idea was to develop a world-leading network which focused on better understanding of mental health impacts of intimate partner violence on women coming from various different backgrounds, and how we can develop various interventions to reduce mental health impacts of intimate partner violence, including the role of families to support prevention. We realized that while we talk about intimate partner violence, and we do realize that there are mental health impacts of the violence, not only for the victims, but those associated with the victim as well. But not much has been done to explore how these impacts play out and what can be done by different professionals to help. So that's the idea that we wanted to explore. Next slide, please. So as I said earlier, we wanted to develop a network of scholars from various different countries, as well as from various different disciplines, which included criminology, health, included nurses, midwives, and other people, which included people working in the legal justice system, so judges and lawyers, and community workers, and so on and so forth. We wanted to extend the scoping review of IPV experiences that we done within the UK and Western countries to take that into Ghana and other countries to see how things play out there. We wanted to look at to hold a research prioritization exercise with relevant stakeholders, and wanted to look at the methodological challenges of choosing various approaches. Next slide, please. The idea was that various workshops would be held in Ghana. However, COVID hit, and a lot of our initial plan was knocked out. But WUN network has been really helpful in terms of helping us jig our proposal as to how we wanted to work. So all those things that we wanted to do face-to-face in terms of workshops shifted online. and we used the funding allocated to us to complete various different aspects of the project, which I'm going to talk about next. So these are the project partners, and you can see there are quite a few partners from various different countries. So all together, there are about 15, 16 academics involved from these various countries as well as universities. Next slide, please. So what we did was that at the moment, our main project, which was looking at the mental health impact and access to health and social care services, is divided into 4 smaller projects, you may call it, or 4 smaller teams who are looking at the mental health effects of IPV and the understanding of within the legal system, especially judges and lawyers, and how does that affect the treatment that women receive. Another team of us is looking at technology facilitated abuse and how it affects mental health of the victims and others involved. We're also looking at repeat victimization and help seeking among survivors of IPV who identify as having mental health issues. And we are looking at the IPV screening in mental health care setting and see how that plays out, and if people are asked about their experiences of IPV as a child or in their life when they are in mental health setting for other mental health problems. So this is some of the work which we are doing with the bigger team divided into 4 groups. We meet regularly, most of the time within the smaller groups of the teams that each team is working on different projects, but as a bigger team as well. And our aim is to bring the learning from all of these aspects together to be able to then develop further projects and further networks and apply for various research fundings. The network and the learning has been quite useful, as in that we develop relationships with colleagues all around the world, especially in these various different countries. There have been side products of the relationship in terms of that we were able to work together and develop and publish manuscripts, especially during the COVID-related COVID area. We have also working on another big project between University of Sheffield, Ghana and Alberta to try and see how we can extend the relationship further to and see how different programs or opportunities for early career researchers can be increased, and so on and so forth. We are also working on a book on which many of the colleagues who we only knew through the WUN Development Network are part of, so it has been quite useful. Next slide, please. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of the project that we are doing. We have run different webinars on various different topics related to domestic abuse and intimate partner violence and its impact. We are planning for the more, and the information will be provided on our website where our project is explained. So please do stay tuned and do ask me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for that most interesting summary of your project. We now have time for some questions for our speakers, and for that I'll hand over to Aoife. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Could I please ask all speakers to activate your cameras? Everyone can see us. Thank you. So we have time for questions. I will present a couple at a time to the speakers. The first 2 questions are initially directed at Madame Diop, and then we welcome comments from all speakers. First question: how can university research influence the multilateral agenda and help transform public policy towards achieving gender equality? And the second question is: how do you suggest we begin to tackle the issue of rising violence against women due to the pandemic? I'll hand over to you, Madame Diop. You're still on mute.
Thank you so much for these 2 questions. I think that when I look at the presentation that have been made by the honorable professors that we have in front, when it comes to violence against women in any part of the world due to pandemic, and as I said in my introduction, what touch one country or even one nation, trickle down to other nations. So we need to network. And I'm so happy to see that the World University is, working with the SDSN by making the South and the North and a multilateral spectrum to work together to develop this common agenda. I think one size fits all doesn't work. We need to research what, and work with the practitioners on the ground to make sure that what we are orienting the policies are the reality on the ground. So having that big network at the global level, I think it's so much important, but trickle it down or have the bottom up and the top down approach both, and having those networks working hand in hand to orient the policy. So I think when we look at the African Union, we will welcome very much this kind of research, especially when it comes to violence against women. As a special envoy on women, peace and security, and we were celebrating 1325 last year during COVID and the Beijing Platform for Action. It's time that we collect more in the context of COVID, that we collect more data to orient the policy at orientation, but also the implementation of those policies. So I would welcome really to interact with the university to make sure that the member state African head of state and government will, orient their policy based on the research that you are doing, you are presenting today. So that is number one. So I really welcome this network and think that we will work together on various issues, including, as we said, violence against women, which is one of the another pandemic that we see, the shadow pandemic that we see all over the world, not just in Africa. And it brings me to the issue of violence against women, because UN Women have, declared that violence against women and the sexual and gender-based violence is that other pandemic that we see all over the world. It's not just an African phenomenon, but in particular in areas of conflict. When you look at the refugee, women in the refugee, or even the migration that have been presented, we have I will say the triple impact. You have the violence, which is already existing, the rape issue, which have been used as a weapon of war, but on top of it, the intimate in the household, that violence that happened in refugee camp, in displaced camp, in many other camps. So we need to look at it in a holistic way, because that's the presentation that was done also on the issue of our economics, because it deals also with the empowerment and financial inclusion of women. Because if we need really to look at the SDG globally and bringing gender across the other goals, what we need is to look at how women could contribute and participate meaningfully. But in the meantime, in the economy, how do we open up for women to have access to health, having access to education, is access to even the agriculture, for example, in our continent, is about smart agriculture that we need, and at least women leadership. I think at the end of the day, what we are talking about is about how do we build that channel, how do we leapfrog the solution? How do we make sure that women lead? And in our continent, we have created a network with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and others, and we will be very glad to link with the researchers on women leadership. I think it does matter. We have seen that during the crisis of the health crisis, which was a health crisis but become financial crisis, economic, social, etc., that the empathy of women, but their contribution by caring being 70%, as health workers, they are at the front line. So what we need at the end is to make sure that they are part and parcel of decision making. So we don't see them just as beneficiary or as victims, but we see them as contributors and meaningful. And for that, we need the researchers. We need to bring the scientific way that it matters in the economy. It matters in the development agenda. It matters in the growth. If we need inclusive growth, it's not just about building infrastructure, it's having the human face, it's the human dimension, which is women and the young people. I stop there. Thank you so much for those two questions.
You're mute.
Thank you, Parveen. Thank you, Madame Diop. Can I invite some comments from the other speakers?
Okay, I will start. I think I completely agree with that. And it is not only, even when we want to talk about the issue around violence against women, gender equality, violence against women, where are women leaders in various different disciplines that we work, all that is quite interlinked, because it is about the mobility of the women, it is about the economic independence of the women, it is then how women are treated and seen in the society. So I think in the multi-sectoral approach, where different it's not an issue of one particular discipline or one particular field. I think everybody has to work together to be able to raise awareness, to be able to identify the problem, and to be able to have interventions which work at various different levels. Because I'm a healthcare professional, I think I can say it very safely, and also that we have seen in this pandemic that everything else was stopped, but you cannot stop the interaction with the healthcare services, with the healthcare providers wherever we are. So I think as a healthcare professional, especially nurses and midwives, we have a very important role to play in terms of identifying and in terms of responding to abuse, and then interacting with other disciplines who we work with, so that the issue is raised. But I think it goes across various different disciplines. It's about having bank accounts for women to be able to have that economic independence. It's about having the being able to walk in at night or in the evening without the fear of being raped or being abused or being bullied or something like that. So it's creating the whole nurturing or safe environment where we are able to raise the issues and something can be done about it. So I would suggest a multi-sectoral approach. Thank you.
Please.
There's been so many great insights that have been stated. I just wanted to chime in and just talk about the importance of research for highlighting much of the work of women that is invisible. So I think it was Madame Diop that said at some point that much of women's lives are somewhat invisible, and I think that research can play a really key role in making the realities of women's lives, the work that they do, the contributions that they make more visible. And I think that's really important to show the contributions that they make, and then to show the importance of those contributions to the economy, to families, to the social networks that we have in society, and so on. So I think that it's a simple idea, but really highlighting how women make contributions that are often invisible in many societies, even within households. They're not appreciated by other members of households. I think that we can really make significant contributions about women's lives on the ground. And I agree fully that women in leadership and women in different sectors is critical to make this happen.
Thank you. Dr. Kuschminder?
Thank you. And thanks to, all of the colleagues so far. I think you've made excellent points. I think from my side, I'll just maybe then contribute one small piece that in the project that we are currently working on with WUN, our end result is quite non-traditional in that we're aiming to create a website for more awareness around women's experiences of migration. Because as I think you said, Madame Diop and Professor Breitkreuz, it's very invincible. There's not a lot of discussion about what women are going through. And what we do see very much in the migration space is this continuous push for data. Well, we need more data and more evidence and basically then more quantitative numbers to quantify this. And one of our core end results is going to be a guidance note on how to actually start talking about collecting data on women's experience that is gender sensitive. We have had happened in our field is that organizations go out with a survey and they say, well, were you raped? And were you beaten? Were you this? Okay, thank you for completing this survey, goodbye. Which we know, of course, as researchers, is completely inappropriate. That there needs to be, if you're going to be talking about these types of experiences, you need to have support systems in place. You need to be able to offer people places to go. You need to be able to provide something for them to be recounting these types of trauma. So for the project that we're doing with WUN, I think what we're excited about is this interdisciplinary team with also social workers involved, so that we can hopefully come out with some guidance about how could this actually be approached and brought into the migration space in a way that would be more appropriate for the women who have had these experiences, and that then we can have some more research that is contextualized to what they've been through. Thanks.
And thank you all very much for your reflections. We will now move directly to Peter Lenny for the next part of the presentation.
I'd like to thank all four of our speakers for framing the issues so clearly and for identifying the major research problems and opportunities that arise from them. Thank you all for such very compelling presentations. As background to the breakout workshops, I'd like very briefly to tell you about WUN's research agenda, what's distinctive about it, and the opportunities to engage with it, so that you can have these in mind as you get together for discussion. The key attribute that WUN can bring to the table is the diversity of its member universities. They are all major research universities that sit in very different geographical, cultural, and legal contexts that not only shape how they support research and deliver education, but also provide them with distinctive, varied perspectives on many important research problems. So in short, WUN adds value because by capitalizing on the varied geographies and cultures of its members, it can assemble and support diverse teams of collaborators to tackle major research problems in fields where comparative analysis matters. And you saw that today in the summaries from our 3 WUN-supported researchers. This slide here shows you how to become engaged. We're very eager to have your engagement in our programs. The network provides a wide conduit of interesting and sometimes surprising international research collaborations. Many of them address real-world problems and offer opportunities for researchers to deploy their disciplinary expertise in new ways. So how do you become engaged? The principal mechanism for supporting research is the Research Development Fund. Can you go back to the first slide, please? Thank you. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. The one you were on, I was seeing the wrong slide. Go forward. Thank you. The Research Development Fund is our principal mechanism, a small grants program that seeds collaborative work and that we hope will lead to major continuing projects. The WUN website has pages covering current and previous projects. There's an annual competition, opens in July, closes in October, and it supports work under the large umbrella of sustainable development. Early career researchers are eligible to apply for these awards, so we encourage you to explore opportunities for collaboration in your breakout sessions. We organize our research activities through 4 global challenge steering groups, in which you can also become engaged. Beyond the Research Development Fund, they organize workshops on larger collaborative projects within their domains, and all 4 of them now are busy on major collaborative projects that are in gestation. So if you're interested, do please engage with the ones that is most relevant to you. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, how to connect. I'd like to, and before we go to the breakouts, I'd like to just draw your attention to how to engage with WUN. Sign up in the WUN hub on our website. This is a platform for WUN researchers to search and connect with colleagues or ongoing research projects. Under the Research tab on the website, you can find information how to connect with our Global Challenge steering groups. And each member university has a local coordinator whose the details are available on the governance page of our website, and coordinators are happy to help you launch your engagement in WUN. We'll also, of course, send a follow-up email summarizing these ways to engage. So our WUN Secretariat staff are also here to help you during this session. There's a room called WUN Information where you can go for further questions to be answered. So thank you all for joining us, and do please have a productive set of sessions in your breakout room.